The following video was requested by Sergio Lozano. If you have a video you'd like to request, or a story you'd like me to narrate, feel free to leave it in the comments below, or message me at channel0yt1999@gmail.com. During the 1980s, if you wanted to play video games, you had to go to your local arcade. It's weird to say, considering I'm not that old. I'm legit only like 20. But a lot of kids today won't know the experience of having to save up money to go to the arcade. Kids today really grew up during an era when they could just stay at home and enjoy countless hours of Fortnite. I hate this generation. Kidding aside, the arcade experience was magical. And even though I didn't grow up during the 80s, I can only imagine how wonderful it must have been to see Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Q*bert, and even Donkey Kong at your arcade. These games were, or are, classics, and regardless of what anyone may say, they are still fun to play even today. Come to think of it, these games are relatively hard to come by nowadays, which is really a shame considering how great they are. I mean, you could probably find ROMs of them online, and even your occasional re-release here and there, but the actual machines? No. Those are in fact a rare sight. That said, I'm sure you can still find them, but one game that seemingly has disappeared without a trace is Polybius. I'm sure most of you have heard about this game. It's practically everywhere online. However, for those that have no idea what it is, well, I would say sit tight and enjoy the ride. This one's a good one. To be upfront, Polybius is an arcade game that made its first appearance in 1981 at any local arcade in Portland, Oregon, and allegedly would cause seizures, aneurysms, and would even drive some people mad to the point of ending their own lives, simply by playing this game. The machines themselves were very minimalist in design, only really adding to its already unnerving nature. They were completely black, and the only thing that adorned the machine was its name, in neon letters: Polybius. There was only one button and one joystick, and the main objective of the game was very similar to another arcade game, Tempest. The puzzle shooter had you rotating a ship around the screen and destroying any enemies that came your way. Within the first week of the game's arrival at arcades, Polybius supposedly became very popular amongst arcade goers. As the legend goes, the game was incredibly addictive. People would form long lines waiting for their turn, calling next and placing their token on the console of the machine. On the surface, the game was nothing more than an average game of the era, but it hid something far more sinister. As more and more people played it, they began to report strange things. Reports ranged from players hearing eerie noises like the sounds of a woman crying, and others reported that horrific faces would show up on the edge of the screen, just slightly out of view. Others reported something much worse. Occasionally, players would see subliminal messages appear on screen. The phrase, "kill yourself," would flash every once in a while, and it disturbed many players, rightfully so. Reports, however, didn't stop there. Once some finished the game, they reported that they would suffer from horrific nightmares, often waking up in a panic and a cold sweat. Some experienced nausea and severe convulsions, and sometimes the symptoms escalated to vomiting. But it gets worse. A few players suffered from headaches, blackouts, hallucinations, and bizarrely, even amnesia. Rather unfortunately, some unlucky few even decided to end it all. These occurrences happened for a few weeks, until the machines just randomly vanished. No one really knew what happened to them. That wasn't until one arcade owner decided to speak out. According to one owner of an arcade that hosted the video game, suspicious men in black suits would often come to the arcade, not to collect money from the machines, but, strangely, to collect records, information for some unknown purpose. After 1 month, the arcade owner explained the men in black suits simply took the arcade machines with no explanation. Because of this unusual behavior, some surmise that the Polybius arcade machines were some sort of government experiment, testing the effects of subliminal messaging to further study mind control. To this day, the game remains as this obscure mystery that everyone in Portland during the 80s seems to remember. At the end of the day, no one truly knows what the real purpose of the arcade machines were for, and no one has seen the machine since it first showed up in arcades back in 1981. Allegedly, it showed up for a brief period in 1998, but quickly vanished soon after. Many since then have tried to recreate the game, but no one has yet to find the original ROM, which, by the way, was created by the company Sinislotion, which eerily translates to sense deletion. With all that in mind, one question still remains. Is the legend real? I'd hate to say it, but I don't think it is. While a lot of people seem to believe the game was real, I have my doubts. Not one person has any evidence of the machine truly existing, and word of mouth is not something to really go by. However, despite the almost outlandish nature of the legend, a game designed by the government to study mind control is honestly not all that unheard of. The US government has had its hand in many unethical experiments, like Project MKUltra, for example, an experiment created to study the very same thing Polybius was already trying to study: mind control. Come to think of it, that's probably where the legend has its roots, so who knows? Maybe there is some truth to the arcade machine that killed many. Polybius.